sent for me, Caesar?
Tell me again, Maximus. Why are we here?
For the glory of the Empire, sire.
So much for the glory of Rome. What is Rome, Maximus?
Rome is the light.
Yet you have never been there. You have not seen what it has become.
Alright guys, welcome to episode 8 of Let's Dive In, and today we're going to be discussing Meditations.
Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, one
The
of the best books ever.
The only guy to be a Roman emperor and at the same time a philosopher.
And a great one.
And genuinely great one. So, what he talks about is Stoic philosophy. So, they believe in the idea that the practice of virtue is enough to achieve eudaimonia, a well-lived life. Now my question to you is, do you agree with this?
Do I agree with what? With virtue?
Believe that the practice of virtue is enough to just have a well-lived life.
I think the virtue itself defines happiness in a certain way. And yeah, of course it's enough. I think he shows it like throughout his writings, throughout his experiences, and throughout the way he feels happy, even if sometimes he struggles.
Okay. So I asked that just because, like, before I actually go into the book, I'm just curious about like Stoicism and all that. He wrote this book as a self-help book. So he wrote it as something he was doing while he was basically invading the world. He was fighting against the Germanic tribes in Europe, and he wrote this book as a self-help book, sort of like a therapy or self-improvement journal.
His personal journal. And what's really interesting is that in his book, he doesn't describe himself as the emperor of Rome. He only describes himself as a male mature in years, statesman, and Roman.
Do you think that's because he never assumed that it would go public, or I don't, when I write for myself, I don't write student?
I don't know, he speaks to himself during the meditations. He did not intend to publish the book.
Yeah, and something, because the journal is for self-improvement, which is why he advocated for like true tranquility. So inner peace and calmness that is achieved by aligning one's thoughts and actions with reason and nature. Which is why I think he was so successful, because like being able to be calm while at the same time defending your country in a very, very it was a very dangerous almost part in the Roman Empire. It was expanding, but at the same time there were many risks. So do you think, how widely do you think this contributed to his success?
I don't know.
Like just the ability to sit down and reflect.
But Marcus is not known for his like military successes.
But he was militarily successful.
No, he did decent, but he was not like one of the top emperors in that field.
Yeah, but I think it's also relative. It's the comparison to that and his philosophical abilities.
But I think it's more like what he did for the city of Rome at the time, and the way he was hanging out with slaves. He founded like philosophy schools, all of them, even if they had different like path of thoughts, he was funding them equally. And I think it's not even a book of philosophy, it's a book of self-reflections.
Yeah, and what I want to say is, as much as he looks into the deepness of human nature, he talks about and he deeply emphasizes the importance of reason. So rational thinking is his highest virtue. He believes that what differentiates a human, and I agree with this completely, at the end of the day is our rational thinking. Without rules, we live with the animals.
Without rules, we live with the animals. Exactly.
So, exactly. And a quote I have: "Your ability to control your thoughts, treat it with respect. It's all that protects your mind from false perceptions, false to your nature and that of all rational beings." So, he throughout the book he has all kinds of things that just these type of schemes and objectives that he talks about. But your ability to control your thoughts and treat it with respect,
like, is basically the value of yourself.
But I think like why it's his highest virtue is because it's true.
No, it's the highest. No, but it is the highest virtue. Even he describes emotions or momentarily lapse of reasons. He's like, for example, anger, and he admits in his book that he is sometimes anger. But he describes it as a momentary lapse of reason.
Okay.
So there is that constant state of reason that you try to thrive for, But sometimes it's okay to be flexible with yourself. It happens that there's those lapses, but you should thrive, hope, and live for
Yeah.
more reason.
Yeah, and something that kind of links to this and allows us to move forward. I find it to be kind of challenging to have his stoic thoughts that he had while at war. So he must have been a man of a lot of self-control, and this kind of moves our objective further, which is control and acceptance. Something like control and acceptance. What do you think he would be able to say about this? Because he frequently discusses what is within our control and what is not. So what are your general opinions before I move forward?
I think it's kind of the Stoic school in all sense that describes as things you don't have control over. You just cannot and should not be angry, scared, or approve any emotions towards it. Because, like, for example, he says, death is a mere loss. How can you be deprived of something that you don't possess? Like, once you're dead, you don't even possess the life. It's out of your control. You should be... Like, the acceptance is also part of reason, because...
What else he says is, kind of like some what you were saying, you have power over your own mind, not outside events, so perfectly illustrating your words. Realize this and you will find strength.
Exactly.
So my question to you is, in this ever-changing world, how important do you think it is to consider this? Like, work on yourself in a sense, and ignore things that are happening on the outside, but not ignore. I don't think ignore is the right word. But
I think
just accept things that are happening. Because a lot of people, like you, sometimes you even blame me on this. Have a lack of
rationality.
Acceptance. Thank you. Thank you very much. But the acceptance on change. Because sometimes people are not even scared of it; they just don't want it. And then, like you like to say, with time you're forced to say.
I think you could consider the world as a set of parameters. There's parameters you can leverage on, so your personal life, your aspirations, your ambitions, your set of skills, and then there's what you cannot change. That is factual. So I think for me to understand and do those personal decisions that have an effect, you need to understand the whole scheme. You need to understand the whole scheme. If you live in a democracy, you need to understand that, even if you don't leverage over it. And so I feel like understanding all the set of things happening is important, but emitting emotions towards it is useless because you don't have leverage over those things. It's important to rationalize them, understand them, take them into account for your personal decisions, but there's no point in emitting emotions.
Yeah, it's the acceptance of it's bigger than you sometimes, and the acceptance of you can't control everything, and especially in such a, something like Marcus Aurelius, you could probably have the ego of saying I can control a lot of things, but I think the general person has to admit to himself that is not the case. And moving on to like acceptance, he frequently contemplates morality, using it as a tool to focus on the present and living in the purpose of virtue. And he portrays death not as the end to be feared, but as a natural part of life that gives meaning. And I think this is very good because I think in a way this allows us to think about the urgency of our actions. Because what happens is, I think you're at the back of your head, you still know that it ends. It's the reason to why you get out of bed. It's the reason why you go to work. It's the reason to why you do anything in life. Because I think, agree with me or not, because I remember sometimes asking you told me, if I could live forever, I would. But my question is, if you were to do that, how much would you achieve? Or would you achieve maybe as much as you have now, but not in 19 years, maybe in 40? Because you have nothing stopping you.
I think the sense of urgency is something really important in our lives. Immortal, I don't know, but I would like to live a really, really long time, because just to witness what humanity is going to become. But this is a personal thing. And to quote him, he says, no, you don't have 1,000 years to live. Urgency is on you. While you live, while you can, become good. And so that type of urgency is that, of course, you have a limited amount of time to do your actions, and this is decisions you cannot take back. There's like retroactive decisions you can make, but the way you spend your time, once it's passed, it's passed. If you wasted 10 years of your life on useless things like doing drugs and whatever, you will not gain back those 10 years. This is something that you lost. And so that's why I think, this sense of urgency is something we need to realize and take advantage of.
Okay, now, not to really move on to a new topic, but something I find interesting, and I want to ask you, have you accepted death?
I've not accepted death at all. It's like, I'm not a stoic yet, I'm getting there eventually, but I feel like death is really, really awful because you've been like since you're conscious, you can interact with the universe, and the universe takes away that right at like a random time, and I feel like this is difficult to accept. But I'll come to that.
But to move on to my next question.
No, but did you accept that?
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Before I move on to my next question, I don't know if I have, but when it does come to it, I don't really have those shivers that I used to. I think of it in a sort of way like it's an eternal sleep. When you're asleep, you're not conscious of it, right?
Yeah, you cannot be afraid of losing something that you don't possess.
Like when you're asleep, right?
Yeah.
And you're not aware in your sleep that you're gonna wake up.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
But I have a desire to have long-lasting impact of the universe.
Yeah.
So even if, of course, I maybe don't take accountability because I'm dead and I just don't realize it, I'm mad because I want to have a longer-lasting impact.
Yeah. But that's not want death, I think, is one thing. Or maybe you want more time. I would love to add a certain 40 years on top of my lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think complete fear of death, I don't know if I have it. Because I feel like but it's like something like, people, I'll be fine if I go to war.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll be fine if I do that. And then until it comes to actually jumping off that cliff.
But they're not doing it.
Yeah,
of course.
So I have a question. Once you've accepted death, how much do you think it allows you to master control? Do you think one person is better than the other, the person who has accepted death or one who hasn't?
I think there's so many sets of parameters that this is difficult to assess. In a sense, I feel like the acceptance of death frees you from a certain weight. But the same way a cigarette smoker, for example, does not realize what's coming for him tomorrow and just like continues. I feel like even someone who's afraid of death just like doesn't really.
You don't
care.
think it's freeing?
It's not. It might be freeing, but like for example, me.
Marcus Aurelius, I feel like from what I've read, he's very much like you're part of nature, you're part of the universe. Death is an inevitable thing. I'll finish it with a quote, but I want to continue hearing what you have to say.
And so I think for example, I would say I'm really, really afraid of death, but it's not something that I think about. It's not something
that's good.
That is like playing a role in my judgment.
You have every day.
It's not even like it's not part of the actions I do. It's not part of the judgments I make. It's not part. It's just something extra that I have that sentiment, but I don't believe it has any effect on my life.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Although I do think it can be sort of freeing for some people. Some people who have paranoia with it, and I know a lot of people who think about it a lot.
Yeah.
So, but in your case, you don't.
No.
So just like I wanted to mention the quote: stop drifting, sprint to the finish, write off your hopes, and if your well-being matters to you, be your own savior while you can.
Exactly. And I'm gonna add another quote from him because we didn't mention it, but we both read that book, and I think Marcus Aurelius emphasizes a lot the importance of action and not
the
pleasure.
importance of change.
Yeah, the change and action. And he asks, were you born for pleasure, to enjoy the sun and the river, not for action? And so he's like, even if of course there is that part of your brain that's just like making you want to access that easy pleasure, those easy things, reflecting on it, are you just born for that? Is it something that you feel fulfilled on? Like scrolling through TikToks all day, okay, you had your shot of dopamine, you had your shot of pleasure, but is that the impact you want to have given the urgency of your lifetime?
You're asking me, right?
Yeah, I'm asking you, or asking people.
Well, for listeners, you can ask yourself that. But for me personally, okay, I'm a big believer in the fact that we're here for no absolute reason.
Mm-hmm.
In the greater things, we're incapable of admitting ourselves that we're here for no reason. Probably the reasons why we created
and
a
we
God.
are probably not here for any reason.
Yeah, we're just here because it happened, I guess whatever you consider a miracle, but that is why we're here. But that's because overall I'm a very I don't know. I'm a person. Again, I separate myself from the animals. I'm conscious, I'm aware, and I want to do something to change something, something. I think this is inherent to human nature.
And I think profound fulfillment comes from action.
Yeah.
And Marcus Aurelius says that even if in the morning he's on his bed and he just wants to write all day, do philosophy all day, think about what's the world's like all day, but he needs to take action, because like when he's gonna be 80 years old and that sense of urgency starts coming, but you need to have taken actions to be fulfilled.
Do you want to be a thinker or a doer?
Yeah, I think
You
you
want
mix
a good
of
balance
both.
of both?
I think you need to do both.
But of course, someone who does has thought about it. So, but just thinking about something is never enough. I don't know. I've met more than a handful amount of people who have told me, yeah, no, I have this great business idea. And then next week, I have this other great business idea. And the week after, it's another one.
And it never stops.
Yeah, and I have one friend who mentioned one, and he slowly works on it. And eventually, I don't know, successful or not, but it's actually there. It's something you can see. It's something that's done. So it's, think or do. But kind of on topic, and we're going to go more on topic later. Impermanence and change. So he reflects on the nature of the universe and the impermanence of everything. So basically, he suggests that change is the only constant, and understanding this helps in accepting loss and adversity.
Yeah.
So a quote, just because the way he says it is just almost perfect. All things fade in the storied past, and in a little while are shrouded in oblivion. So I think be accepting of your failures.
Yes,
or
of
something.
course. Yeah.
Something else you think he might be indicating here?
No, I think it's mostly accepting your failure and moving on again. Like it's not.
Do you think this links to like loss of family?
No, I think this links also to postponing. You know, like it links.
Letting some things. Like,
letting something drift.
Because I feel like there's a lot of passionate people who just kind of like, oh, I have to do it now. I have to do it now. But sometimes take it slow.
No one does it now.
A lot of people do it now.
Everyone does it the next day, and they don't do it, and they postpone to the
I know.
next
I feel
day.
like you're talking about like the people who are like eager to get rich today. For example,
I don't think there's a lot of them. I think they end up scrolling on TikTok, and the next day they will see how it goes. You know, and Marcus Aurelius emphasizes that and he says a man, if he no longer postpones, his ready place among the best is in some way a minister of the gods.
That's
a minister of the gods. So, and it's true that if like no longer postponing and being able to be fully aware, have full reason, and be the master of your actions, is in some way being a minister of the god, because you have full control over your life. You're just above. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I feel like if you're capable, and even I'm capable of admitting I postpone a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is just what people do, especially as today's society is pretty lazy.
Yeah, and but it's okay. It's
and
just
you need something to push you. But if you're capable of having that push without having to get it, does that make sense? Having the incentive to do something without the must requirement of it, without having a due date tomorrow, it has to be assigned or you're out of uni. You just do it. I think that's a talent. And I think it's a gift that I have yet not been able to possess.
I mean, yes, if you're reading books without an assignment, if you're doing those podcasts because you just like to...
That's a trick of taking the first step. So, for example, let's say the podcast, right? The first step was hard. Okay, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
But then what makes me continue is the fact that I'm aware that I have to have a book by tomorrow. I don't know if I would have done that if I didn't place it in my head or created a sort of invisible contract with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
So
But I feel like taking the first step and then being on a path of improvement, like to go back on this notion of change that he talks about, I feel like is really important. Once you started doing, it's all about improving. It's all about those small changes that are every day. I hope our podcast gets better, for example.
100 views, I'm just saying.
100 views. Thank you, Matthew, for the subscription.
And congratulations on the job in Boeing. We promise we're not stalkers. We're just very emphatic and happy. So you're always welcome on our podcast. If you're ever in Madrid,
always welcome.
Send us a message. We're willing to. So yeah. Links to perspective and judgment, something else. A significant portion of his meditations deals with the idea that events are neither good nor bad in themselves. and it's our judgments that make them so. So basically, in short, he advises suspending judgment and viewing events objectively. I feel like you have something to say on this. About viewing things objectively.
Viewing things objectively is the most important
and we know.
thing ever. Because
you have the stage.
We've talked about that during previous books, how like medias are polarized, statistics are manipulable,
yes.
everything is... And so I feel like nuance, as I already mentioned, is one of the most important concepts ever. And objectively assessing like situations, and like Marcus Aurelius says, not taking and expressing useless emotions is really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And something he says, and I recommend to certain listeners that we have in America to listen to this. I beg you. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Dear Americans, dear the world, please double check. Nothing out there is concrete, but there are some things that are more reliable than others, and don't believe things in face value. It's a major mistake. And a guy living who the hell knows when is telling you this. So, and time has changed, but in this aspect, absolutely not. It was a problem then, it is an even bigger problem now.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. And yeah, I feel like just... For me, the answer is to have plain and flat data and making conclusions from them. Hearing a guy on TV might bring you some perspectives. Hearing a guy doing a speech might give you some perspectives.
They always go to the conclusions before stating any facts. They state a thing. Oh, by the way, this is what's happening. But you don't know why. You don't know how.
And at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing, because capitalism is incentivizing them to do so. But it's not a bad thing. Capitalism is a great thing. We talked about it before. But you have to realize on a personal basis, on a personal plan, that truly the people that are saying that are not here for you to get the best information possible. So that's why looking at data, excluding emotion from your judgments, and being objective is for me the one of the best virtues, as Marcus Aurelius also states.
Okay, now another problem in society, duty and social responsibility. So, as an emperor, Marcus, he was very concerned when it came to the duties to his people and the Roman Empire. So he writes about the importance of fulfilling one's role in society with diligence and care as part of a larger whole. So again, a quote, because...
Yeah.
Never shrink the proper dispatch of your duties, no matter if you're freezing or hot, tired or well rested, vilified or praised, not even if you're dying or pressed by other demands. It's such a big problem we have today.
Can you repeat the beginning of the quote?
Never shrink the proper dispatch of your duties. Never, not underestimate, that would be the wrong word. Never undervalue your duties. But basically what he's saying is, but do what you have to do, no matter what. You have a duty and you have a social responsibility. You have to be a valuable person in society. Whether it's you're a soldier, be the best soldier. Like, be part of society. Nowadays, like kids being 27, I don't know what I want to do in my life. Oh, I'm this, or I'm depressed.
I think
I want to go to Africa and play with the penguins. Penguins in Africa. Maybe I messed up.
But again, I feel like this is easy to do those judgments, and you need to understand the causes, you need to understand the potential solutions.
Again,
and I would not judge people nowadays, but on that really fundamental...
You disagree that a productive mindset is a huge problem in today's society?
It is, but I would not judge the people for that. For me, it's a result of many components, and we need to thrive to fix that, and we will fix that, and we need to be optimistic, because that's what the world's doing best.
I'm not arguing.
But yeah, I agree with you.
I'm just saying that
I agree.
It
is an issue, and I think because of easy access to dopamine, people don't realize the fulfillment that you can get from being good at what you do. And I feel like in a society which is so interconnected, so like everyone's talking to everyone, everyone's looking at everyone, being a valuable member of that same society, bringing your piece to the the whole building and doing your best will be valued, will be recognized, will bring you good things, and the butterfly effect will take care of the rest. You know, that's I think the main thing.
Now, something like you're not only responsible for the tasked aims that you are responsible for in your community. That's not the only thing. When it comes to more, if you inherit more power, something he talks about is the ethical use of power.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of the most important and most powerful individuals of his time. You even told me my guy was hanging out with slaves.
Ah, yeah, probably. No, yeah.
So ethical use of power, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but empathy and understanding others plays a huge part in this. Like, despite his power, he was understanding, forgiving. He had empathy and patience. Something I think certain leaders lack nowadays.
I feel like this is really a question of system of values. I know that some people will quote Machiavelli, says the end justify the means, and if you have an objective, and if you value that objective more than anything else, you might commit unethical actions and you will be like in search of that result. Bon, that being a fact, there's data that proves that those people usually are unhappy. And so having that ethical use of power, I think, is also one of the keys to virtue and happiness.
But that's the funny thing. So, is this a propaganda piece? Because he did believe in the greater good of things. He did believe in the end justifies the means. This guy. And at the same time, he killed Catholics.
He killed Catholics, but no, he didn't kill Catholics.
But he killed Catholics.
He took some land, and we will have to check data on that. But I think, as a ruler, he was not one of the ones
he
who
wasn't
committed the most wars.
Rome has an interesting history.
Yeah.
But end justifies the means. You have to do what you have to do.
Yes, but he was not doing what he had to do, and I feel like
he was.
At some degree. And no, you might be right, but I think because the book was written for himself, there's no question of propaganda piece, of course, and I feel like empathy and ethical use of power is the way to be happy as a leader, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just a quick one when it comes to empathy and understanding others. Whenever you are about to find fault with someone else, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is an issue I have a lot. I criticize a lot of things that I myself do. And I'm working on that. I will get there. And it's true that it's a big issue in society. What do you think about this?
I think the quote is very sophisticated. It makes complete sense. I want to move forward, if I'm being honest.
Go for it.
The nature of human existence. Do you have any original thoughts? He talks about self-improvement, virtue, inner peace, resilience, empathy, like we already mentioned, and the interconnectedness of all things. So kind of like when you spoke about the whole universe thing and how we are interconnected and interdependent.
I feel like this part is really interesting on a purely philosophical perspective. But the fact that he was so affected by the beliefs of gods, of multiple gods, of like polytheism, basically Greek gods, makes it kind of like, that was the part of the book that I less liked. But if you want to talk about some of it, go for it.
What do you think about the interconnectedness? Since we already kind of spoke about this, the idea that we were born for corporations, like feet, hands, eyelids, we're made to be together. You think like things like a one country or a one government or a one society or a one religion would benefit humans, or it would end up just like
I think we need to give credit to diversity, because we see that in some systems diversity shows a greater improvement. But
so learn to cooperate rather than being the same.
Yeah, and even if you're not the same, Marcus Aurelius says a lot. Eliminate judgment from your life, because it only brings you bad things. Yeah,
that kind of links to the unity of cosmos and the value of simplicity. I think that's it.
I think that's it. It was a great overview of that book, and you guys should totally go for it. I think I'm gonna read it once a year because it genuinely talks about great concepts.
I think it's one of those books you read and every time you get a new perspective.
Exactly.
I would like to end it by saying something very important. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man you should be, or in this case, woman. We're in the 21st century. Be one.
Exactly.
So that was Marcus Aurelius Meditations, episode 8. We hope you enjoyed, and tune in for our next podcast, which should be next week, and this time it will be Victor.
See you guys.